one of my main guiding assumptions is that there is no political spectrum. Let me explain what I mean by this. Many people will propose that there's a spectrum of political views. A very common spectrum is left to right. Right? So if you believe in this, there's kind of a line that you would fall on. Right? At one extreme, you've got communism, say the worst form, Stalinism, Maoism. Right? Then, more towards the center, you have some kind of liberalism. Right? You might have socialism in between those. Okay? And then you have moderates. Right? And then you have conservatives. Right? And then you have fascists. Right? So it's this line going across. Right? Now, some people will then add, and actually, the spectrum bends, right? So that the fascists and the communists end up being very similar to each other. Right? I would actually argue that this idea of a spectrum is an illusion, and it's a very distracting illusion. Right? In fact, there's not a spectrum. There's a number of distinct positions, all of which have different things in common with each other. Right? But when we think of it in terms of a spectrum, we tend to lose sight with the things that conservatives and communists have in common, and that liberals and fascists have in common. Now, of course, I'm not saying conservatives are communists or vice versa, and I'm not saying liberals are fascists. They're very different in extremely important ways. But we tend to lose sight of the fact that very different theories end up having surprising things in common because we think of it in terms of a spectrum. So one of the things I'll be doing in this course is pointing out ways, right, in which some of the theories aren't what we typically think they are, right? And there's nuances to the different theories that bring some very different theories close to each other on particular points. Right? For example, later in the course, I'm going to point out some of the surprising similarities between cultural conservatives and Marxists. Right? It turns out that they have certain things in common that put them in disagreement with both liberals and libertarians. Right? So that's one of my guiding assumptions. There is no political spectrum. There's a number of different opinions that all have their own logic and that need to be understood on their own terms.